Sony Animation. They've made some great movies and some not so great ones, but no movie, no matter how good or bad it is complete without some kind of a villain. Over the years, Sony Animation's created a menagerie of colorful antagonists, ranging from authoritative emojis to comic book supervillains. They may just have the most amount of variety in villains across all the major animation studios. With such a roster of villains, it leaves us to wonder which of these villains were the most imposing to their foes, and which ones might be better off heading to the gym. Today, we're going to get to the bottom of that question. I'm Kifinosi with Wicked Binge, and this is Sony Animation Villains Weak to Powerful. Before we get into things, let's make a few things clear. First off, we won't look at every single Sony villain who's appeared. Some don't have that much screen time, and others are just not really interesting. However, we'll try to represent every major film and franchise in the studio's history. Second, strength isn't the only thing that can make a villain powerful. We'll also delve into each villain's intelligence and personality to see how key they are in making a villain a threatening force. Like always, we'll start with the weakest villains and then work our way up to the strongest. With that out of the way, let's begin. Starting us off, we give the gold medal of weakness to Mayor Shelbourne from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. What is there to say about this guy? Shelbourne is about the furthest thing from a strong villain. For one, Shelbourne lacks any real physical capabilities. After food began to rain from the sky, he became obsessed with eating. As a result, he has to get around with a scooter for much of the movie. He fights a little bit, but it's nothing compared to basically every other villain on this list. However, strength isn't the only thing that can make someone powerful, of course. Intellect is also important. Unfortunately, Shelbourne isn't the sharpest tool in the shed either. He can be manipulative, but only to his citizens for the most part. Overall, Shelbourne is just about the worst package for a villain. He's not very smart, and he's not going to be winning any bodybuilding competitions anytime soon. With how hard he falls in these two areas, we had to give him the lowest spot on our list. This is one mayor who's probably not worth your vote.
See you, suckers!
Going from one leader to another, we have to give the silver medal of weakness to King Leonard from the Angry Birds movie. Much like Shelbourne, Leonard's not too physically intimidating. He is a pig, after all. Has there ever even been such a thing as a powerful pig? Now, Leonard does have some intelligence, however, and we see that as enough to keep him out of last place. He lords over the piggies, and he is easily the most intelligent of that bunch. If he's in a dire situation, he could likely call on them for help, though it is up for debate regarding how useful they would even be. He's also manipulative, as shown when he creates a false friendship with the birds in order to retrieve their eggs. Despite him being sworn enemies with the birds, they do end up forming an alliance in the sequel, showing that Leonard is a firm believer in the proverb, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend." Though he has an ego, which is best seen with how he sees the other pigs as beneath him, this fact does show that he's willing to make alliances to save his skin. Leonard's definitely smarter than Mayor Shelbourne, but we don't feel his smarts will be enough to save him for long. And don't forget, pigs are a far cry from the strongest creature in the animal kingdom.
This is their psychotic leader!
Getting the bronze medal of weakness is Tank from Surf's Up. Tank is the most skilled surfer of his time, having usurped the title from Big Z during a surfing contest. That alone makes Tank the most physically fit character to appear on the list so far. Besides that fact, just look at this guy. You'll never see a penguin quite as bulky as Tank.
Wow, you get quite a workout there. Oh, that feels good.
Unfortunately, that's where things begin to unravel for him. Tank is a penguin, and if there's one animal that isn't particularly strong, well, it might just be penguins. They aren't known for their violent bloodlust either. The Tank is strong, but he only uses his athleticism for things like surfing. Tank never uses his strength to, say, attack anyone. Even his surfboarding skills could use some work, given that it's the underdog Cody who defeats him in the surf-off. To sum it up, if you're a fish or squid, you might be in grave danger around Tank. For the rest of us, though, he's as harmless as any other penguin. Another animal, Lutador from Vivo, is next on our list. A Burmese python, Lutador hates any and all noise. He's certainly one of the scarier looking foes on our list. With his large size and sharp teeth, being a python, Lutador will eat everything and anything that crosses his path. This is something that the characters Vivo and Gabby learn quickly after encountering him. We think Lutador would easily dispose of the three characters who've preceded him, but anyone else would likely be a challenge. If you can't catch a little girl, can you really be a match for actual supervillains and robots? Lutador is also another villain who doesn't have the smartest mind. While chasing Vivo, he's able to outsmart the villain by running around a tree, causing Lutador to get stuck in it. Lutador's scare factor is also lessened when you realize that Burmese pythons do not have a venomous bite. Even if he bites you may still have a chance to get away. Overall, Lutador is proof that appearances can indeed be deceiving. Though he appears mean and scary, his actual abilities are not enough to carry him far in a game of strength. From animal to animal hunter, we're placing Shaw of Open Season in our next spot. Shaw only seems to love two things in life. The first is his gun, Lorraine, and the second is hunting animals. If he has a chance to kill an animal, he will take it. His house is full of animals mounted to his wall, and he will gladly try to run over animals on the road, a fate that almost befell Elliot. Given the amount of animals he has killed, we determine that Shaw has some skill. He's even come face to face with a bear and lived to tell the tale. However, we feel that Shaw is held back in two key areas. First, he's only good at hunting animals. While he can take out a deer or even a bear, it's completely unknown how well he would fare against another human. Even his track record against animals isn't perfect. Let's not forget how they ganged up on him at the end of the film and won. The other reason is the bigger of the two, that being that he's not in the best shape mentally. As the film progresses, he becomes convinced that there is some sort of animal revolution happening, where all the animals will overthrow the humans and take over the planet.
I didn't realize I was talking to a couple of whack jobs.
Shaw has some skill, but his mental state is enough to make him one of the weaker characters on our list. Next on our list is Smiler from the Sony Animation classic, The Emoji Movie. Despite her happy appearance, this is one emoji you don't want to mess with. Smiler's the head of the Emojis Corp, so she's rather powerful with regards to leadership. She controls all of the emojis, as well as antivirus bots, beings that can delete any mistake they come into contact with. Smiler's power comes from her followers. On her own, she's as strong as you would expect an emoji to be, but her minions could definitely fight her battles for her. She's also very committed to taking out any mistakes, going as far as to give her bots illegal upgrades in order to get rid of them. Like Shaw, she has her goals and will do anything to achieve them. Sadly, that isn't the only thing that she has in common with Shaw. As the main character Jean continues to escape from her clutches, she becomes more and more unstable. While her recklessness could be helpful in keeping enemies on their toes, it clearly doesn't do that much good for her in the context of the film. Smiler might have numbers on her side, which puts her over Shaw, but that's all she has over him. There are several others on this list who also have henchmen, but they're in a better mental state. In a nutshell, Smiler, like the movie she originates from, could probably use some work. Next up is Chester V from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2. More than probably any other villain on the list, Chester's strength comes from his brain. He's a master manipulator. He takes advantage of Flint Lockwood's admiration for him to gain the Fludsimdefur, which he wants to use to turn the Foodimals into food bars. He's even willing to do the same to Flint and his friends. Chester is also the CEO of LiveCorp, a name that surely means nothing written backwards. As the head of a wealthy company, he funnels his money into tons of inventions, which would certainly be of help to him in a fight. One of these programs is his holograms. Not only do they run errands for him, but they can also act as his evil minions. In a way, he's quite similar to Smiler, though he's a lot smarter than her. Although he is extremely intelligent, Chester isn't higher on our list because we feel he doesn't have enough strength in the traditional way. If he's in a fight where he can't use his holograms nor his inventions, he's pretty much finished. He could find ways to manipulate his opponent, but even that wouldn't be a guaranteed success. Although Chester V isn't the most intimidating villain, his brain is enough of a reason to still fear him. Our next spot goes to Abraham Van Helsing from Hotel Transylvania 3. Like nearly every other version of the character, this Van Helsing is obsessed with hunting down Dracula.
There are monsters hiding amongst you.
Unfortunately for him, he has nothing to show for his hunt 2 entire centuries later. While we could give Van Helsing credit for being able to fight these supernatural creatures, this version of Abraham that we see for much of the movie is not that Van Helsing. In the present day, he relies on a robotic body to keep himself alive. So this Van Helsing definitely isn't winning any fistfights, but what about his brains? He's definitely good at coming up with plans, even if they are a tad convoluted. The third film saw him create a fake cruise for the monsters, with the ultimate goal of taking them to Atlantis and using a device to destroy them all. This, more than anything else, shows that he is incredibly persistent. Abraham will go to great lengths to destroy his enemies, and we've got to commend him for that. So much time has passed, yet Abraham is still working to purge the world of monsters. Van Helsing is a lot like Chester in that his strength comes from his smarts. Given that his brain has been keeping him going for over 100 years, we feel that we have to give Van Helsing the edge in this department. However, the fact that he doesn't have anything to show for his efforts through all of these years does hold him back. Even when he still had his body, Dracula didn't see him as much of a threat. He's also lacking in strength, similarly to Chester. With all that in mind, we can't rank Abraham any higher than this. That, and there's also the fact that there's another Van Helsing who's a little more capable. That leads us to our next villain, Erica Van Helsing, also from Hotel Transylvania 3. Erica is the great-granddaughter of Abraham Van Helsing. She was trained from an early age to be every bit the monster hunter that he was, and we think she at least lives up to his legend. We ultimately give her the edge over her great-grandfather because of how she does most of the heavy lifting in the film. Though Abraham may have come up with the plan, it is Erica who puts it into action. She's the one who obtains the instrument of destruction, as well as the one who spends most of the film trying to actually kill Drac. Another advantage she has over her namesake is strength. She's not stuck in a metal shell like him and is instead a highly capable fighter. Erica is very agile and is also proficient in hand-to-hand combat. The only major disadvantage she has compared to Abraham is that she is rather impatient.
I will kill him.
Whereas Abraham Van Helsing has had no problem waiting for years to enact his plan, Erica would rather cut right to the chase. Beside that, Erica is more deserving of the title of Van Helsing in this film. She has all the persistence of the original Van Helsing, now with 100% fewer robotic parts. Next is Pockets, hailing from Wish Dragon. Pockets acts as a servant of Mr. Wong, tasked to find the titular Wish Dragon. A bounty hunter, Pockets is somewhat reminiscent of Erica in that he is extremely fit and agile, though ultimately we have to give the edge to Pockets. Come on, he does almost all the fighting with his legs. You've got to give him credit where it's due. Being a bounty hunter, we can also assume that he's taken out a target or two, making him the first villain on our list who hasn't taken out monsters or animals, but rather actual humans. If you have something that he's ordered to go after, he will find you, and he will succeed. Aside from his physical skills and a history of actually achieving his goals, we would also like to mention his betrayal of his employer, Mr. Wong. When Mr. Wong is in trouble, Pockets takes the much sought after magic up away from him, leaving him to almost fall to his death. He's not the only henchman on this list, but he's definitely the only one to actually betray their leader. Pockets is an extremely crafty bounty hunter, and one that any villain would want to serve at their side. Until he backstabs them, that is. A more obscure villain? Next is Black Bellamy from Pirates, Band of Misfits. The rival of the pirate captain, Bellamy is your stereotypical villainous pirate. That may sound like a negative, but we see it as anything but. As a pirate captain, he has a great set of henchmen at his disposal. He also has his own ship, complete with cannons and the like. In addition, he has a set of his own weapons, as any self-respecting pirate should. Black Bellamy easily has the best arsenal of any villain so far, and the fact that you know he's killed plenty who've stood in the way of him and his goals only makes him seem stronger. What kind of pirate would he be if he didn't? While he's far from being the most recognizable villain, Black Bellamy's arsenal and reputation as a fearsome pirate make him an easy pick for the strongest villain so far. Kicking off the top 5 is Hunter from The Star. Hunter is the head soldier of King Herod, so he has a lot going for him based on just that. While the last few villains have all had minions, you can't really get a better following than a literal army. Beside that, we must also say that Hunter is probably the most fit villain so far on this list. In a battle of sheer strength, none of the earlier villains would ever match this guy. Hunter is committed to his mission, and he's a no-nonsense kind of soldier. He's not interested in any sort of mind games, and he doesn't even have any lines of dialogue in the film. If he has a goal that must be achieved, he'll rely on nothing but his brute strength to carry it out. Besides an army at his disposal, he also has the dogs, Thaddeus and Rufus, at his side. While they aren't as strong as he is, they help him track what or whomever he's in search of, giving him a good set of accomplices at his side. Really, we have to give Hunter the edge over previous villains because of his strength. While he isn't as smart as previous villains, his persistence and power make him entirely capable of taking them on in a fight. Hunter is a soldier trained to fight and kill, making him one of the more dangerous villains in Sony's catalog. In 4th place is Zeta from the Angry Birds movie 2. The former lover of the mighty Eagle, Zeta rules over Eagle Island, but hates the icy environment that makes up the land. Because of this, she sets her sights on making both the Birds and Pigs Islands her new residence. At a glance, it may feel weird for Zeta to be so high up on this list. How powerful can an eagle be, after all? Well, how about an eagle that can shoot fire and ice balls? This alone makes her among the most powerful villains on this list, but the perks don't stop there. She is a very intelligent Philippine eagle, as shown by how technological her home appears to be. She even has scientists working for her. Her ability of flight also causes her to be higher up on this list. Her wings make her quite the tricky opponent to pin down. Whenever she's in a bad spot, she can simply fly away. Zeta was so powerful, in fact, that neither the birds nor the piggies could defeat her on their own. Instead, they were forced to work together to keep their homes. While the mighty eagle might be intimidating, we think his girlfriend is truly the scary one.
You have got some flippin' nerve!
Her friends call her Liv, but her enemies call her Doc Ock. From Into the Spider-Verse, our bronze medal of power is going to Dr. Octopus. A gifted scientist, Doc Ock is a pretty tough villain to pin down. This is due in no small part to her 4 robotic tentacles, which tended to do all the fighting for her. With them by her side, she can take on several Spider-Men at once, which is probably the most impressive display of strength in any of the villains so far. Her arms also give her a nice boost on the battlefield, making her one of the more agile characters on this list. Though her opponents can run, they cannot hide from her forever. Her arms can easily pick up anyone and anything from a good distance, which only makes her tentacles all the more powerful. Whether it's her tentacles or the Super Collider project, Liv continues to create technological breakthroughs. Can you say the same about anyone else? Really, the only reason we don't rank her higher is because there's somebody who is a bit smarter and another person who is a bit stronger. At the end of the day, there is also the fact that she's merely a henchman working for a larger villain. A villain who you may just see soon enough. Getting the silver medal of power is Pal from the Mitchells versus the Machines. Pal started off as a virtual lab assistant, but things quickly changed after she was discarded in favor of a new product, the Pal Max. Enraged, she begins an uprising that sees the PAL machines turn against their human overlords. PAL is definitely the best villain when it comes to intelligence. She's great at playing mind games. To capture humans, she lures them into pods with the belief that they have free Wi-Fi. When the Mitchells enter the PAL factory, she plays a video featuring Katie lying to her father, exposing their whereabouts to PAL. PAL isn't a slouch when it comes to henchmen either, as she controls literally every PAL machine. She has an army that easily destroys any that have come before it. And let us not forget that she manages to capture nearly every human on Earth. If not for the actions of the Mitchells, well, the entire planet would have been under her control. A cold and calculating program, PAL's strengths come from her army and intellect, making her a villain who few could ever stand a chance against. If you ever think it's time to throw away your smartphone, it wouldn't hurt to give that thought a pause.
Huh? Ugh. Nodded off for a bit there.
You never know when a machine uprising is about to begin, after all. At number 1, we're going back to the Spider-Verse. Earning our gold medal of power is the Kingpin himself. Kingpin might not control a robot army, nor have almost conquered Earth, but do you know what he has done? Killed Spider-Man with his bare hands.
It's not always about the money, Spider-Man.
That alone may be enough to give him the top spot, but Kingpin only continues to impress. His large body is made almost entirely out of muscle, giving him the greatest physique out of anyone on this list, easily. While he does lack an army, his henchmen more than make up for that. Kingpin keeps a number of super villains under his payroll, from the Green Goblin to Scorpion. If there's a villain out there, the chances are high that they've served under him. His legion of supervillains not only give him the best henchmen of all the villains we've covered, but they also highlight how threatening he is. If you're able to boss around these guys, you can pretty much do anything. Kingpin may not be out to rule the world like his runner-up, but his reign over New York shows that he is absolutely capable of possibly doing that. In conclusion, Kingpin is the perfect package. He's stronger than the others, smarter than the others, and has better henchmen than the others. As a result, we have to call him the most powerful villain in Sony animation history. And before we wrap everything up, let's hand out some medals to the characters who deserve them the most. First, we have to give the Darwin Medal to Shaw, an animal uprising against humans. Come on, you gotta be kidding. Next, we're going to give the Pride Medal to Tank. With how much he adores himself and his accomplishments, we don't think anyone else deserves this award like he does. Up next is Pal, the recipient of the Wrath Medal. Her hatred and subsequent rebellion against the human race make her an easy choice for this award. The Lust Medal goes to Erica Van Helsing, thanks largely to the relationship she forms with Dracula. King Leonard gets the Sloth Medal. If all you do every day is order your minions around, can you really say otherwise? An obvious one, the Gluttony Medal goes to Mayor Shelbourne. No one else on this list gorges themselves in food quite like he does. The Greed Medal goes to Chester V. His desire to use foodimals for profit means this award fits him like a glove. But let us know in the comment section if you agree with our ranking, and tell us what we should cover next. Remember to hit that notification bell and binge our Weak to Powerful playlist, where we break down who the most powerful characters are in your favorite cartoons, shows, and movies. But most importantly, stay wicked.